Ladies and jelly beans. Now, I've been threatening to do this for absolutely ages. So what we want to have a look at today is guitar measurements, why they matter, and how to do them. And we'll do the how, and we'll do the why. The why I'll cover immediately. It's because it will make your guitar play better for you, and we're all different, so there are really no rules at all with any of this. It's whatever works best for you. Ignore all that stuff that you see on YouTube. The important consideration is what's best for you. First thing we're going to have a look at very, very quickly is strings and string gauges. My preferred strings are gauges 9 to 42. 9 to 42 means 9 thousandths of an inch to 42 thousandths of an inch. And although in many ways these numbers are kind of slightly immaterial, it does give you a reference of what you'll know that you want to buy. And just to give you some little indication about who uses what. So these are my favourites, 9 to 42 gauge. Billy Gibbons, of course from ZZ Top, uses 7s, which are very, very thin. Brian May, you may have heard of him, he uses 8 at the top E. And in fact, Soul Legend has it, back in the 60s, when they were looking for thinner strings, Brian and his chums used to go down to, I think it was Camden Lock, to buy banjo strings because they made thinner gauge strings than you could buy for electric guitars at that time. So, string gauges. Try them all, see what works best for you, because you'll definitely find a favourite. The general principle is that anything that's slightly heavier will provide more slightly better tuning stability, but you know, only to a certain extent. So you use what you like best. That's that. So let's have a look at today's weapons of choice. Now, all of this stuff that I'm going to show you, it's all really, really inexpensive and very, very, very worthwhile having. So as you will probably know from previous videos, I do have proper neck rests, but I just like a pair of sponges better. There's a bit of give in them, you know, so if you accidentally you lean or put your hands, or there's any weight goes on the guitar, these have got plenty of give in them. And so I think the other thing that might be quite good, and I've not bought one yet, but I will do, is the beanbag version of a neck rest. Okay, so the next thing is a notched straight edge. So these notches fit over the frets. There's roughly a Fender scale on one side and roughly a Gibson scale on the other side. So the spacings are just slightly different to accommodate the different scale lengths. And this is good for checking your neck relief, which is very important to the way your guitar plays. Now, I'm just going to show you these. And quite frankly, I don't even use them these days. All of the manufacturer's specifications will give you a gap relief in your neck. When you've got your straight edge, there should be a bit of a bow somewhere in the centre around the 7th fret mark, and they'll give you a number of feeler gauge that should slot in to that gap in the bow. But we'll have a look at that in closer detail, and these for the time being, because they're a bit dear and not really that necessary. Okay, the other thing that we're going to look at, very, very, very important, this is just something that I can't live without. This is the string height action gauge. I'm just trying to get that in a slightly better light, and hopefully you'll be able to see what's going on there. But I'll get you all in close-up for the actual measuring stuff. Now, although this isn't specifically a measure, this is a fret rocker to check whether your frets are level or not. The three main things, as we have talked about in the past, that make your guitar play well or not, is string height, neck relief, and also how level your frets are, because if they're not level, that can cause choking and buzzing and a general amount of unplayability. We've also got here, as you can see, a multimeter. Very, very important for doing continuity testing and also for measuring, and this is what I'm going to cover today, for measuring the output of your pickup. And there is slightly more to it than just measuring the output. Next up, we've got 2 pairs of spectacles. Although these aren't required by younger people, generally speaking, I've got some sort of low-ish strength and some high volume items, because when it comes to doing fiddly stuff, I'm as blind as a, well, not as blind as a bat, but you know, it's a bit of a struggle. I've got a little fly lead here, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. Right, okay, so they are today's weapons of choice. The guitar that we're going to have a look at is one that I picked up a little while ago that I've not even looked at yet. And so here's a crusty old gentleman for you, and I am referring to the guitar. And we're going to have a look at what's going on with that in terms of action and playability. Okay. So very briefly, string height, and again this is very, very much a personal preference. So the accepted wisdom is that what we're doing is we're checking the distance from the bottom of the string to the frets, and my preferred height is 1.25 of a millimeter. So we'll have a look at the string height action gauge, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. This is way too high, as hopefully you can see on the top E, and also it is a mile too high. I want to see certainly less than 2 on the bass side, and again this is way too high. Okay, so that's that. Let's have a look at that string action gauge. So here it is. They're a couple of quid to your door. They cost flumpence, and they're really, really useful. And again, the actual numbers are to an extent meaningless. It's what works best on here for you. And if you buy one of these, you will learn which height you prefer, and either raising or lowering string height is really, really very, very easy, providing you've got the right size Allen key or whatever other tool it is that you need. Usually these tools come with the guitar that you bought, unless of course you bought second hand, which is something else that we're going to have a look at in a moment. So, yes, I like to have a look at millimeters, just because that's the one I know, but you can also have a look at thousandths of an inch on the other side, and it does do other stuff as well, but we'll try and keep it simple. So, I like 1.25 on the metric scale, and that's where I always like my string height to sit, because that works best for the way that I play. It may be different for you. You might want it slightly lower. You'd be very, very lucky to get it below 1, and over 1.5 I think that might be a struggle if you're playing lead, but as I say, horses for courses. Okay, neck relief. This is very important. We have discussed it before. So your notched edge, again, yeah, they're not dear. Tenner, maybe, tops to your door. So, so the slots fit over the frets, and what I'm looking for when I'm looking at this is a sliver of light between where the notched edge sits on the fretboard and the gap below the straight edge, and you should be able to see there that you could get a bus in there, and this will make a massive difference to the playability of your guitar. What we're looking for is a sliver of light, not a great big gap like that. So this truss rod does want tightening up. In fact, probably when I do come to tighten it up, I will show you how to do that. It's pretty straightforward, unless the truss rod is goosed, and then of course you're in trouble. I'm trying to show you this from as many tiny angles as I can, so that you can see that gap there, which is absolutely a mile too big. Okay, moving on. Multimeters. How? What? Let's have a look. So again, these really inexpensive. £5, £10 at the most for you know, your basic thing, and this will do the job just fine. And so we're going to go for the 20 ohm setting. You will see that marker there that says 20, and nobody ever tells you the reason for this, and that's because it will measure a resistance from from 0 to 20 ohms, which is pretty much the resistance that most guitar pickups will give you. That's why we're not using 200 or any other reading on here. So even if, and this is what I want to tell you, even if you're going to go and buy, let's say you bought a used guitar off eBay, it's a local pickup job, and the guy says electric's untested and I have no amplifier, so I suppose your choices are you can take an amplifier with you, or if you don't want to, pop that in your pocket and do this. You plug one end of the lead into the guitar, and these two, it's easy with alligator clips obviously, but you pop these two ends on the ground and the hot parts of your jack, and you'll get some kind of reading on here. And we're going to have a look at this now. I've not tested it, I've not played it, I have no idea whether it works or not, but also very usefully with, and I really only kind of know about Gibson specific outputs, but you can check on Google for any manufacturers, I should think, any manufacturers pickup ratings. They should tell you what they are. So for example, a Gibson 57 Classic will read between 8 and 8.5 on here. And so you don't need to plug it in, you pop your fly lead in, stick your little probes on, and when you put it onto you know, the either rhythm or treble setting on your toggle switch, if it's reading between 8 and 8.5 and the number isn't wobbling about, if the number's wobbling about, the pickup's knackered. So that's another thing to look out for. But if it's reading between 8 and 8.5 for that particular type of pickup, then you're probably okay. You're probably okay. So let's have a little look and see how that works. So you've probably seen on my videos that you'll see the multimeter with the readings on it. Let's get in a little bit closer, see if we can see that screen slightly better. Yes. So what you're doing is you're going to pop the red lead on to the hot part of the, oh, I'll tell you what, why don't I turn that on? So yes, so I'm setting that to the 20k ohms, and I'm going to pop the red end onto the hot bit and the black end, oh, make sure everything's turned fully up, and we should get a reading. And our survey says, once it's settled down, 8.25. Very, very nice. And that is on the humbucker. You can see the position of the toggle switch there. It's on the humbucker setting. So I'm happy with that. Of course, the intermediate readings between pickups will be, you know, roughly half, because that's how they work. So we'll look at the centre one. And that, wow, that's pretty good for a single coil. Okie dokie, 8.14. So we do know that the electrics work much, much easier than plugging the damn thing in and having to cart an amplifier around with you. And on the neck end, we're on 8 point, there you go, 8.82. So very respectable and healthy, I would say. And again, this isn't really terribly important. Well, it's not terribly important, but if it reads 0, then you know that there's an electrical fault. And also, if that number keeps moving up and down, like, so we saw 8.25, if it keeps moving up and down from, you know, like 2.5 to anything else, then you know that the pickup is goosed. Okay, next up. Okay, so fret height and stuff. Again, they're a fiver, maybe less. The fret rocker, so you'll see that it's got 4 different edges on it: small, not as small, larger, large. And you pop that across 3 frets and you rock it from side to side very, very gently. And there's a little bit of something there on fret 21. That's okay. That's a little bit of something there. That's okay. I'm going to move it along now to the next size. Oh, that's got a rock on it. That's okay. A little rock. That's okay. Quite a rock. Moving on to the next size. Where are we? That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. And so on and so forth. So, because I have this rocking movement, it means that the frets are not level, but in fact they're undulating like this, you're seeing. So I will, when I remove the strings, because I'm going to have to, well, I'm going to change the strings anyway. Now, as you can see, this has got a Floyd Rose, and they're actually a bit of a pain in the neck. It's not impossible, of course. Nothing is impossible apart from swimming in a thimble full of water, and but they are a pain to set, and this has been set up rather beautifully, I'd have to say. This is nice and straight, you see, and that is what you want to see with your Floyd Rose. And of course this is the floating type, so synchronous will be everything moves together and it only goes in one way, but this will go forward, as you can see, and backward as well. Lovely stuff for your Joe Satriani squealing type noises on the harmonic. Oh, listen, I'll tell you what, just while we're here, I want to show you this. So, reverse headstock. You've seen this 1,000 times before. You've seen reverse headstocks before. But why? Why would I have a reverse headstock? Well, the theory is that because the distance between your lighter strings is not as great between the nut and the bridge, then there isn't such a great tension, you see. There isn't such a great tension on the string which should make it easier for bending, and I am a bender. So it should be easier to use the guitar, certainly for solos and what have you. However, what I would say is that if they've got a locking nut, then the physics of that defeats me. I think that if they've got a locking nut, it makes no difference, but I don't really know. Michael, can you help me there? Right, okay, moving on. So in conclusion, the three main things that do make the biggest difference with the guitar in the way that it plays is the string height, fret height and neck relief. But I do hope those little tips and hints were helpful, and it's adios amigos, terra.